Hello, dear folks. Welcome to the East-West Show, exclusively sponsored by Paul Bottanelli, an internationally renowned brand name for men's suit, such as the one I'm wearing. Well, that's good, right? Okay, anyway, for Paul's support, we want to together cultivate into the culture of the community by bringing lots of information necessary for you to learn about ourselves. Speaking of ourselves, we have a good system to face, that is a big system, a good system to face, that is our judicial system. Is it good as it's supposed to be, or is it worse than supposed to be, or better than supposed to be? And there is organizations or people working on annual reports out of their research, study, comparison, everything. One of them is one of the very excellent organizations that I got my pleasure to have the chance of knowing about through my good friend Mary Ann Maloney, who later I'll give you a long introduction about who she is. One of the organization is American Tort Reform Association, based in Washington, D.C. And they worked out the year of 2016 to 17 report ranking with some terrible result. Okay, now today with my good friend Mary Ann Maloney, we're sharing the information with you. Hopefully this gives you a push of you understanding about what to do as an American, also as a Californian. So to my good friend Mary Ann Maloney, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's always very good to see you, Jack. And you're my good friend too, and Kayla's good friend.
Very good. And I would like to go back a little bit with your background and also with Kayla's background, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for your viewers, Jack and I have known each other. We've together been fighting for civil justice reform here in California for small business owners maybe 10 years.
Mm-hmm. At least.
At least 10
yes.
years. Mm-hmm. And we have been making small reforms through our grassroots network called California Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse. Mm-hmm. And I am the regional director here for Southern California. Mm-hmm. And we have more than 50,000 supporters statewide, most of whom are small business owners who believe legal reform is one way to turn California's economy around and create jobs. And it was one of our legislative visits, because that's what Kayla does. We take our small business owners and we meet with legislators and we share our stories of how these unwarranted lawsuits really impact our businesses, impact our families, and cost jobs. And in one of those meetings that we had the opportunity to share it with Assemblyman Kurt Hagman at the time, and he very much agreed with us. He was supportive of us, but he stopped the meeting and he got Jack Shaw on the phone, and ever since then you've helped us spread our word and get our message out.
And thank you very much for remembering such a long history. Okay, and talking about the past 10 years, that's exactly 1 decade. You have 2 with the Bush administration, and you have 8 with the Obama administration. I don't want to give comment about who is better, who is not better, but we know by judging the system that goes from all the way from north to down south at almost a kind of like a bird dropping speed, we really know the problem is big. Speaking of Kayla, my personal appreciation, I believe with my audience too, goes to them very immensely, because Kayla stands for California Citizen Against Lawsuit Abuse. You know lawsuit abuse, what lawsuit abuse means, right? Okay, so people find lots of opportunities, or even a small chance, like very slim chance, to get into the system and try to get paid, to get money. And there are even worse case, the lawyers driving about looking for loopholes together to make it hellhole, even worse, to see if they can, quote unquote, help those guys get paid. Of course, they get paid first. This is one indication. With that, we stretch to the report, right? the report, the Tort Reform Association, American Tort Report Association of 2016 and 17 does say something, and we would give the opportunity to Marianne to start it with. How about, well, St. Louis?
Well, sure.
St. Louis won the medal, right? Didn't they?
St. Louis, the show me state, that's right. They're still #1 in terms of being the country's top judicial hellhole.
I see.
And the reason why they're the top judicial hellhole is because they encourage out-of-state product liability cases to come to that area. Because the courts there, they allow for junk science and dubious expert witness testimony. Despite the fact that people who live in that area, the plaintiff's attorneys do a lot of television advertising. So if anybody in town there was to ever go and serve on a jury, their decision would be tainted before they ever went in and heard the case and heard the merits of the case.
Contaminated.
That's right, because of all the advertising. Now that doesn't mean California has really done that much better. I mean, we've been #1, gosh, how many times, time after time again. But this time, because of that, what happened in St. Louis, we're slipping to #2. But California continues to be a top judicial hellhole simply because the legislature loves lawsuits and they love legislation.
Let's stick to Missouri, the show me state first, with St. Louis as an example, good example. Later we moved to California. Thank God we're #2 down to the worst, right? We're only 2 to the world, and we're not the very, very top worst, and we're doing so far so good. I thought we should be at the very bottom, right? And okay, let's stick to Missouri. And there's a term, when I was doing my homework, they call it junk science. What's the definition of junk science, please?
Junk science is when they try and prove something, but the science doesn't really prove anything. So there's really no evidence that backs it up. It's just kind of made on statements from, kind of dubious sources. And that's what they mean by junk science. I see.
They apply the junk sciences to prove a case, so that they call another term called the plaintiff-friendly. That kind of thing.
Plaintiff friendly. And they take these cases to courts that are plaintiff friendly. That's the whole point of the American Tort Foundation's Judicial Hellhole report, is that every year it takes a look at all the different jurisdictions across the country and those that kind of use the laws unfairly that lead to biased outcomes that favor plaintiffs over defendants. And that's why St. Louis this year is #1 and California is #2. But again, I'm going to state, we probably should have been #1 because we're very plaintiff friendly here.
Oh yeah, sure.
I mean,
and okay, all right. Plaintiff, I mean friendly. That does mean that the judge, the court, the system take a stand already. It is no longer being judicious. Right.
So, because the courts there, they call it venue shopping when the plaintiffs and the plaintiffs' attorneys are deciding where to take a case. They look at those courts and possibly those judges in those areas that might be favorable to their case that would lead to the outcome that they want to have.
I see. And also there's another trend. We see this going from worse to worse for the past few years, especially for the past two decades, and exclusively talking about the past 8 years, things getting even worse and worse. How does it relate to the politics? Okay, our politics, and you and I, we shared quite a few times, are also going the same direction where the judicial system is going. So do they come alongside as sisters, or one as the leader leading the other one going that way?
Well, it all depends of the makeup of your state legislature. I mean, here in California, we're very much a blue state. And that's why this last year, with more than 890 bills being enacted into law, most of those bills are not going to favor business. They're going to probably favor more, lawsuits, or put business in a situation where they might have to be in compliance. And if they're not in compliance, it sets themselves up for a lawsuit. And that's one of the reasons why California is a top judicial hellhole, is because there's simply too many laws that are in place in the first place, and then they go in and enact another 890, and business have to know what's going on so they can be in compliance, and if they don't, they get hit with a lawsuit. Well, what happened with just running your business, making sure you stay in business, and creating jobs instead of being up to date on all these different legislative issues that you're supposed to know about to protect yourself from a lawsuit?
Okay. Well, for the court system to be defendant friendly is one thing, and for the system to be judicious is the other.
Right. We want fairness.
We want fairness.
Fairness.
We're talking about fairness. And it so happened, coincidentally, last night, I had a visitor to my house, and he is a owner of 3 major small businesses. And starting last year by summertime, he had to face 3 lawsuits, 3 directions. All his 3 businesses are being sued. I asked him last night that, are you going to lose? He said no. I asked him, are you going to win? He says no. He doesn't know where he stands, winning or losing, whatever. He says one thing for sure, that it cost me money, time, and business. To sometime down the road, business might get hurt enough to be closed. So that is the part that got my concern. Who's right, who's wrong? They're over those small tort matters. Right. Not a kind of a life and death struggle or something. Not those criminal act or stuff like that. Well, I don't know. I don't know where to do. And yet in California, he, according to him, quote unquote, he is facing a one-side tilted system. Probably the one-side tilted system refers to what we mentioned just now about the plaintiff-friendly system, or judges, or premeditated, or kind of contaminated by media system. Am I right?
That's right, because first of all, in California, there's more than 1 million lawsuits filed here every year, but that doesn't take into account the hundreds of thousands of demand letters that our business owners receive that forces them to either litigate or settle. Well, see, it's so expensive to litigate, maybe possibly like your friend, he's gonna settle. But see, settling to make it close, to make it go away, you're right, you don't win and you don't lose, because it's gonna cost you money, and that money would have been better invested in your business, in creating jobs, in buying new machinery, anything that would improve your economy, instead of taking money out just to pay off an unwarranted lawsuit. And most of these cases are on issues of technical non-compliance. No one is ever hurt. And I want to say that California Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse, we wholeheartedly believe that somebody should have their day in court if the case has merit and if the case is legitimate. But it's on issues of technical compliance, when they abuse the system for their own personal gain. Those are the type of suits that we're trying to curb.
Okay. But there are two categories I would like to double check with you. In most of the cases, there is no case at all. Nobody gets hurt, right? It's just applying, called it violations, right? For example, it's supposed to be 3 feet and then you're 2.5, something like that kind. In this case, nobody gets hurt. In none of the emergency cases. This is number 1. And number 2 category, I would like to double check with you. Who gets the benefit? Either the defendant plaintiff or defendant, or somebody in between?
Well, the person who brings forth the claim, who sends that demand letter, the plaintiff and possibly the attorney behind him would be the ones that would be able to get the money. And a lot of these type of instances, such as the abuse of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which if you don't have the right parking lot sign, the mirror might be too high, the toilet is too low.
The ADB, DABA? No.
The ADA.
ADA attack, act.
The ADA, which, let me state that there's probably no business in California that doesn't agree with the spirit of the ADA, that the disabled should have complete access to public places. But it's because of the loopholes in the law that allow them to go and sue anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000 per each issue of technical non-compliance. Are they ever warned that, you know, hey, you might want to get the right sign or fix that mirror? Absolutely not. Are they given that demand letter saying you owe me $10,000 now, or we're going to litigate?
Or you
yes,
pay,
they are.
or you pay, I go,
That's
or we go to litigate,
That's right.
and then, well, you end up paying more.
Right, and everybody knows the cost of litigation is just outrageous.
Owners of business might think, all right, if I put up 2 years down the road and XYZ dollar amount of dollars to go till the end, still find I'm losing, and I'd rather lose now, right?
Right.
How about
just make it go away.
$10,000 a check cut to you? Okay, go baby, go enjoy the money. That's it.
Right.
Something like that.
That's right. And but you know what though, $10,000 might not seem a lot to some people, but it sure is a lot of money to a family business, or it sure is a lot of money to a mid-size. But it's a lot of money to anybody, because
if somebody pushes me pushes me for $10,000, I have to borrow from you.
Right, it's a lot of money, and it's of no benefit. You know, again, it should be invested in new business, in a new machinery, in possibly hiring a new employee, or all those kind of things that will allow you to be in business and grow your business.
Okay, now to the point, right? There are lawyers, there are attorneys in between who gets the benefit because they sneak around to get the cases, quote unquote cases, right? Once they do, they get the case. Once they do not, they can still write you a warning letter or a scaring, frightening letter, say, hey, I need the money, like that kind. Okay, now, if we go back a little bit, go up a little bit, at the upper level, the system allow them to do so. Am I right? Yeah.
Well, because of that's right. The laws allow them to go and to sue them on issues of technical noncompliance, because somewhere that's the whole problem with the Americans with Disabilities Act, is that there's so many federal laws, there's so many state laws, nobody knows what to do to be in complete compliance. And even a few years ago, there was a bill put into law by Governor Schwarzenegger, Senate Bill 1608, called the California Disability Access Commission. And one of the first things that commission was supposed to do was put together a whole checklist so business knew what to do to be in compliance. Well, you know, years and years have gone by. It's been 2008, and they've had many meetings, and all of a sudden they just kind of agreed, there's too many. We can't put together a checklist.
There's too many, yes.
And if you go to their website, it'll just kind of tell you the top claims that could happen and kind of give you ideas of what to do from there. But because it is a law somewhere and you're not in compliance, then yes, you can be sued for that. And you can be sued for that without warning, and you can be sued for that without given the chance to fix the problem.
Okay, all right. My audiences, thank God we live in a land that is of total freedom. And also thank God we are under this beautiful flag of democracy. Well, you know, democracy could also mean other things, and then you have the freedom, and they have the freedom too. And it's only a matter of who has how much, right? Who shall have how much. And talking about our judicial system, typically California, I have the honor to be joined by my good friend, Marianne Maloney, the regional director of CALA. CALA stands for California Citizen Against Law Abuse. Lawsuit abuse. So let's take a very short moment out. When we come back, probably we will do two things. Number one, we will go find out where and how does our system make this big loopholes, better call them hellholes, and that people can sneak in for money. And number two, we will find out what are those typical laughable cases that might indicate the nature of those lawsuits, right? So, and of course, in those cases, you always have two categories. One category is that in a case being sued or whatever, being fight about, somebody gets hurt. Or even worse case, in a case nobody gets hurt, only you're talking about paper, a piece of paper or something like that. Anyway, so we'll be right back, please, my dear friends. Hello, my dear friends, my dear audience. Welcome back to the East-West Show, exclusively sponsored by Paul Batanley, an internationally renowned trademark for men's suits, such as the one I'm wearing. It is not something represents the culture, but also tradition and even fashion, even fabric technology. And to Paul Batanley, thank you for sponsoring. Thank you for making me look thinner. As a matter of fact, my scale tells me I'm not going down on weight, but I look it up if I did, right? So with my friend, Miriam Loney, she is the regional director of CALA. CALA stands for California Citizen Against Lawsuit Abuse. We're talking about how California ranks in the report, the annual report done by American Tort Reforming Association on an annual basis per the 2016/17 year report. We ranked ourselves the second to the very bottom, which means we are almost the very, very, very worst. Okay, now, okay, with this as a background, we really want to see how bad California has been, all right? So I want to ask my friend Marianne a question. Everything has a start, right? So from the very starting point, how come these laws are tilting that much to those frivolous lawsuit plaintiffs? Right.
Well,
What made it happen?
For many, many years, California has ranked the worst place to do business by CEO Magazine. And a lot of that has to do with the makeup of the legislature, because the legislature is not very pro-business. And so because of that, they enact many laws that make it very difficult for business to always be in complete compliance, and that sets them up for a lawsuit. So California basically is not a pro-business friendly state, and because of that, it's very difficult for our businesses to be in business here. And as a matter of fact, in 2013, CALA celebrated our 20th anniversary. And to do that, we had reached out to Andy Puzder, the CEO of Carl's Jr. Restaurants, to be our featured speaker, because he's on the record of saying California needs to change its legal environment so our California businesses can be in business and grow their business and be the job creators they were meant to be.
Okay.
And even when he was there at our luncheon, he was sharing how it's so much easier for him to open up new restaurants in Texas, China, or Siberia because of Los Angeles's legal
compared to California.
And compared to California because of our regulatory and legal environment.
Exactly.
And he even shared with us then, that was back in 2013, that when his lease was going to expire, he was going to think about leaving California because of our legal environment for a more pro-business friendly state. And you know, he did. He's now operating in Tennessee. And more good news maybe for your business owners there and concerned about abusive lawsuits. He has now been nominated by President-elect Trump to be the labor secretary. So maybe he will be very sensitive to these issues and hear us in California when we say we need some kind of relief.
That makes some sense. That really makes some sense. I don't know too much about politics, but one thing for sure, if I become someday a legislator, I will create a law that benefits our studios. Am I right?
Right.
Or at least it will tilt it to studio business. Right. So if my light bulb falls on my head, I'll ask my owner to make to pay me $2 billion.
Oh no.
Something like that. Right. So I'm talking about the logic. Okay. Now with the legislators, most of them, a majority, I believe, a majority of them are being lawyers. So we're talking about, you know, a bunch of hungry guys. Right? They make laws that tilt to hungry guys, and the hungry guys are making hungry cases. So it is the California economy, it is California small business owners are being hurt by logic. Am I right?
Absolutely right. They're the ones that put together these laws, and hopefully they're trying to help their associates out there generate more business. But it's the California businesses and the California employees that are only going to suffer and, you know, move to more pro-business friendly states.
Exactly right. And then what goes even worse is that we have that ADA kind of a law. If you have business laws, I can still take my time to look into it, find out how I shall capitulate myself into those laws, right? When you talk about ADA laws, so can you please take some time, explain to my audience, what are the ADA laws, please?
Well, first of all, every business in California supports the Americans with Disabilities Act to allow access for the disabled to public places, wholeheartedly. But because there's so many issues that people have to be in compliance with, it's almost impossible to keep up. There's so many federal laws, so many state laws that nobody really knows what to do. And they do what they know to do. They don't go and get a big checklist and think about and study and, you know, take over their life and try and come into complete compliance. But there's so many laws that it's very difficult to be in compliance. And a few years ago, Governor Schwarzenegger had put together a law called Senate Bill 1608 that would have created the California Disability Access Commission to put together a checklist. And to this date, they have not yet done that.
Yeah, literally they can't do it because there are too many to do. Right?
There's too many to do.
Yeah, I give you a good example. EDI being an event organizer for the past 20 years, 2 decades already. And basically I myself gets involved in doing the actual pinpointing stuff like that. There's one time I remember so vividly that we were required to put a slope around the stage, right, by making two angles and 3 to get on stage. Why do we do 3 times? Because it has a local law of 15% or whatever percent of slope, of degree of a slope. So if you make the length too small length and it goes too deep, and then you have to stretch it all the way. We go around the stage to make sure that somebody on a wheelchair can get on stage. The point is that the whole day that nobody gets on stage with a wheelchair. Well, we didn't have the need. So the wasting of time, wasting of money, wasting of material, wasting of everything. So where's the point? I don't get the point.
Well, first of all, if business knew to do that in the first place, I mean, kudos to you and applause to you for knowing to put that slope to help a disabled person up to the stage in the first place is a very good thing. But the problem with a lot of these issues of technical non-compliance is that nobody really knows what to do to be in complete compliance. So they do the basics, and even by doing the basics, they still get set up for an unwarranted lawsuit because there's just too many of them. You have to the right parking lot sign, the bathroom mirror has to be a certain amount, the toilet can't be too low, the walkways have to be wide enough, the blue parking lot striping has to be such a way, it can't be faded out. It just goes on and on and on. And whatever they have in place this year, they're going to say there's going to be 10 new laws next year that are going to make additions to everything you thought you had in place to be in compliance. So it's almost impossible.
It is so impossible for a business to develop in a way it is supposed to be, because there are lots of obstacles to do so. And then when we talk about obstacles, there are some make sense. There are some who does not even make sense, right? So, for example, the height of a bathroom mirror, 3 feet from the bottom, or 3.5 feet from the bottom, or 3 feet and 2 inches, right? You're way too high, you're way too low. Would that kill somebody if the mirror is too low?
It wouldn't kill somebody if the mirror is too low, but people, if the mirror is too low, people should be warned, or they should be given the opportunity. Somebody should send them a letter and say that you're not in compliance, the mirror is too low, you have 120 days to get a new mirror. That seems reasonable, that makes common sense. And if they don't fix the mirror and they disregard it, then we agree.
Yeah, all right.
But it's the fact that they just come by, they call them drive-by
lawsuits.
lawsuits.
You're even backing up a little bit, backing up one huge step. Say, okay, we'll do it, but give us time.
Right.
Am I right?
And warn us, tell us.
Warn it. Okay, now, for the bathroom mirror, you do have time to move it up for 2 inches or lower it down for 2 inches. But in situations you're talking about, a public restroom supposed to be 3 feet in semi-diameters. You're talking about this. In other words, you're talking about 6 feet, right? How many of the business could afford how many of those areas for a single bathroom for a single toilet.
Right. It's very expensive. We have one of our supporters who is an Irish immigrant, and he came to the United States to live his dream, and he has a background in hospitality. So he worked in restaurants, he worked in hotels, and finally he saved up enough money, and he was able to buy his own Irish pub.
Okay.
And lo and behold, here he is. He gets hit with an abusive ADA lawsuits for just that. The wheelchair, couldn't spin inside the bathroom.
Spin like it's a spin,
Right.
Do they dance inside? I don't know. I never got a chance to see how they dance on wheelchairs. Well, do they dance or whatever?
Well, I'm sure he danced a jig because it cost him about $50,000 because he had to knock out one wall and move it over. So,
Okay.
in a lot of instances, does that really?
Well, anyway, my dear audience, the more we continue, the more laughable we feel the subject is. Yet these are reality, all right? This happens. We have lots of good examples and cases. We may dissect them later on when we come back. So with my dear friend, Marianne Maloney, we're really getting to the point. Some of the points are even so grassrooted that, people with the least sense of understanding, with the least IQ, maybe 35, that's almost where I am with understanding, right? So we'll take a short break. When we'll come back, we'll take those examples and we will taste how much that is good to indicate the problem that we are having. So we'll be right back, please. Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the show. The East-West show pays attention to everything that happens around us. That's why we have the #1 supporters who exclusively sponsor this show. That is Paul Batanley, that represents the men's suits, such as the one I'm wearing. And they're not only famous in the men's suit, also sportswear. Their golf series, their everything. They have Aristo 18, go try. And if you look online, you will find Aristo 18. Oh, good series. Well, anyway, thank you, Paul, for sponsoring the show. A big show with my good friend, Marianne. Marianne is very knowledgeable. She is a very influential leader in the community. And she is the regional director for CALA. CALA stands for California Citizen Against Lawsuit Abuse, which is an organization, non-profit, in existence for 20 years. That's 2 decades. I know her not long enough, but only 1 decade. and getting involved.
A good decade, right?
Very
yes.
good decade. We got more compact that way. All right, good. Okay, now, talking about the examples of those frivolous cases or those nonsense cases, when they start this whole thing called junk science, why don't we call it junk cases?
It should be junk cases.
Should be junk cases, right?
Yeah.
Right, let's junk it. Let's see.
Right, and it's a lot of the cases that are in California that are kind of junk. I mean, the businesses here, we suffer from the abuse of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
All right, okay.
We suffer from abuse of Proposition 65 lawsuits, wage and hour, and the California Environmental Quality Act type of abuse that has now been putting a block to important housing development projects that have now led to California having a critical housing shortage because of the abuse of the California Environmental Quality Act, which was something put into law by, at the time, Governor Ronald Reagan, that was to protect the environment. But over time now, it's just been used to block housing developments. And so look what you have, a critical housing.
I would say it really got misinterpreted. And the same thing under this beautiful flag of democracy, everybody deserves its own freedom, right? And under this, if you interpret it right away, of course you're okay. You can also do it to a way to create a third bathroom. Am I right? Because they say, oh, okay, it's a freedom to everybody. Why don't I have the freedom going into the gender neutral bathroom? Okay, I'm gender neutral. I deserve a bathroom. All right. Okay. I have 6 fingers, and then I deserve a bathroom with 6 fingers. Can you say no? If you say no, you're discriminating me. I put you in court. You dare not say. And the next day, you see another law talking about 7 fingers, something like that. And this is what it happens, right? Now, we were last segment talking about those cases in which nobody dies, right? Those are the cases that especially needs to be pointed out.
Right.
Needs to be pointed out, right? In cases of nobody dies, I give you an example. The bathroom door. I read lots of materials about this. I did my homework. There is the bathroom door. There could be 2 kinds. One is the tilt. We call the knob. You
the
twist.
lever.
You twist, right? And the other is a leveler. Then you push it and it opens, right? Like this, with a handle like this. Or you have a button. You press it and it opens, right? Something like that. Okay, now, how big is the number one? How big a difference between this, and this? There's no big difference. Okay, number 2, what if we give them 60 or 90 days, give them to replace it?
That would be great. Telling them that they need to have the right kind of doorknob is much better than going and outright suing, because to go and buy the right doorknob, I'm sure you could go to Home Depot or something and do it by yourself.
15 minutes. Okay.
And buy the knob at, probably a very, very reasonable cost.
Okay.
Install it yourself, still probably be less than $100 than being faced with a $4,000 ADA lawsuit. And
if the owner doesn't agree, you have to go to court. It takes you 2 years to go down all the way to say, okay, you deserve to put a doorknob on the door, and then there goes the fine of $50,000 or something like that.
Right. That's why they call them drive-by lawsuits, because they know nobody is really in complete compliance, and they just go throw all this stuff at them, and they force them to spend up to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 just to make the case go away.
Remember last time you mentioned something per finding, not per case?
Per issue of technical noncompliance is how they kind of
per
call
finding,
it.
Per finding, right? In other words, if one violation could deserve, say, could get several letters, more than one, and then to the letters, he has to pay, the owner has to pay each of them, am I right?
Right.
Okay.
And so because of that, they could be looking at, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to settle it, just to make it go away, without ever getting any warning, without ever having a chance to fix the problem, and without having a clear checklist from the state of California to know what to do to be in complete compliance. But I do want to let your viewers know that there is a bill, Senate Bill 269, that was signed into law. And it's a good bill, first of all, for a business to know that if you were to go out and hire a CASP inspector, they're called a Certified Access Specialist, and they come through your business and they make a checklist of everything that you need to do to be in compliance. That's a first good step that you can take to start to protect yourself from one of these type of cases.
And also, there is a huge group of employee benefit or whatever, a group of laws, right? And work comp laws, you call in your term or whatever term. And some of them make lots of sense, some of them do not even make sense. Okay? And there are even cases that once you file a lawsuit, the system automatically tilts to the employee side rather than business owner side. I'm not a business owner, I'm an employee till this very minute, right? Till this very minute. But I really want to speak on the employer's behalf. Employee speaking about for the employer's behalf, that is unfair. I have witnessed a case, a person who, if she likes, could show up 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, and by 12 she needs to feed her dog, going home, and by 1:30 she comes back and takes a nap, all right? And then by 5 o'clock everybody goes home. She has to do her overtime, and for years she accumulated a whole, XYZ amount of hours, and she is suing. And the system took it right away, all right? Say, hey, this person needs to be paid by da 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 da. The whole thing, Marianne, is very, very, very crazy. I don't know anybody. If you talk about this very individual, I can testify. I can testify, right? So you go home, feed your dog, and you feed yourself, and after all this feeding, of course you're tired. You need a nap, right? Okay, when you wake up, almost closing time, everybody goes home, and you have a job to be done. So she automatically sits there doing her overtime, and then asking for money to be paid, and that's not fair.
That's not fair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to share that we have one of our small business owners who owns a security company. And you know, a security guard, when they come, they're supposed to patrol, they're supposed to keep their eyes open, they're supposed to be sharp to make sure that if something bad is going to happen outside, they're on top of it. Well, this business owner had a situation with one of their employees that when they would come to work, they would do just that. They would fall asleep. So they caught them on the job, falling asleep 3 or 4 times in a row. And it was very, very, very difficult to kind of, you know, move that employee away. But one of the types of lawsuits that are even worse than ADA lawsuits that we're seeing a lot of now with California Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse here in California are wage and hour violations. And a few years ago, we had a big press conference on the steps of the state capitol. And I'll never forget one of our business owners from Bakersfield. And he came forward, you know, and he was tired, and you know how business owners look kind of, and just working hard all the time. And he shared that, you know, it didn't really matter that he paid his employees, that he paid his employees on time, and that the check cleared the bank. What mattered is that the check stub didn't have a beginning date or an ending date on the check stub.
Okay.
So because of that, he was sued as a class action lawsuit for every pay period, for every employee, for every check stub for 4 years. It cost hundreds of thousands of dollars on a technical issue. Nobody was ever hurt. The check cleared the bank beautifully.
Yeah, clears the bank, yes.
But what happened was, first of all, he's now no longer in Bakersfield. He took his business and his jobs to Texas.
To Texas, okay, go.
To Texas.
Go.
But this is another example of a good law turned bad. Because it's the abuse of the Private Attorney General Act, which was a bill Governor Schwarzenegger signed into law in 2004. And at the time, it was to protect employees from bad employers.
Yeah, you're right.
Those employers that worked and then they didn't pay you, or you worked and they gave you a hot check. Well, over time, you know,
but
they figure out.
But we're human. There are negligence to talk about. Negligence that could be explained. One way to explain is that this very individual gets the XYZ dollar of numbers, this period, that period, that period, that period. The almost even lump sum of amount, though, indicates the period of time. Am I right? This is humanly understood. This is logically understood, humanly understood. Why would our law system tilt to the plaintiff rather than the defendant in this case?
Well, it goes back to what you were mentioning earlier in the show, that it's the makeup of the California legislature that seems to be more plaintiff-friendly instead of pro-business friendly. And they just keep enacting all these laws that make it almost, you know, impossible to be in compliance. It just sets them up. And year again, you know, the worst place to do business, and businesses are
next time if I become a legislator, I would make law saying that all audience watching Jack John's show should smile. If you don't do that, you are kind of in a violation, right? In my law. Okay? Well, I'm joking. I know I'm joking. All right, but it could be a law anyway if I become a legislator.
Right. Yes,
at least I can write it, right?
You could write it.
Okay. Oh, my dear audience, this is with my friend Marianne. We're having some good time. It is kind of very sentimental, right? I call it that way. You get excited one time and they get disappointed then, and you joke around a bit to relax yourself. It's kind of like that. So let's take a very short moment now. When we come back, we believe everything has a cure, right? So what is the cure? Where lies the cure? So stay with us. We'll be right back, please. Hello, my dear audience, my lovely fellow Californians. Welcome back to the East-West show, exclusively sponsored by Paul Bettany, a wonderful, super wonderful brand name for men's suit that represents culture, tradition, even fashion. And I'm proud to be presented, to be sponsored by them. And the show East to West, from East to West, really focuses on all necessary for our community. Today, we're talking about the most necessary thing for the new year to start with, is that we want to know, to make sure that we bring our audience the awareness that our law system is being clogged up by frivolous lawsuits. And the frivolous lawsuits might be created by the following factors. Number one, the encouragement of our law system. Number two, the frivolous lawsuit lawyers. And then those plaintiffs who really want to make some money out of nothing, such as the employee example that I gave you, who goes to feed her dog or cat, and she has many dogs and many cats, of course. The duty was so heavy, and then she gets so sleepy and she dozes off. Well, anyway, which is very humane, right? Anyway, so, and thirdly, there are cases in which nobody dies, nobody even suffers anything, and then it's only a paper you're talking about, only probably words, a rhetorical term, something you're talking about, and then still they get fined. With all these, we believe our system are clogged, according to Marianne. Oh, thank you, Marianne, for bringing up the report, the annual report 2016/17 for the Judicial Hellhole report. All right, good. Now, I believe, like I said, everything has a cure. I believe this thing must have a cure. Where or what do you think the cure lies, or the cure is?
Well, the cure lies in your viewers and in business owners across the state and California Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse, because we have been successful. And the reason why we've been successful with our small reforms is because now our small business owners are meeting face to face, just like you and I are, and they're telling their stories of how these abusive cases impacted their businesses, impacted their families, cost jobs. And when the small business owner goes to that legislator who represents him, those are votes in his district, so he kind of has to pay attention to what they're saying, in addition to not being influenced by what the trial bar is trying to tell him what to do. So hopefully, by us sharing our stories with them, when they go to vote, they vote for bills that favor civil justice reform over those that do not. We've had small reforms because of that, and we're optimistic that our strategy will continue.
And also, there's another factor we would like to point out, to start the job from you yourself, right? Make sure that you don't be a creator of those frivolous lawsuits yourself. Right. Okay. Make sure that when you go home, feed your dogs and the cats, you do it after work, not during daytime, and then you have to sue the lawyer, the boss, for it, for them to give you time to do that, right? So, and from everything start to me myself, if everybody thinks that way though, and work system will be released. Right? So that is also another point. Is that right?
Right. California loves its fair share of lawsuits, and it's almost the culture here that if there's a problem that you experienced, oh, I'm just going to sue.
California is sue happy, right?
California is very sue happy.
Very sue happy, yes.
I mean, I have a story I can share with one of our restaurant owners in Newport Beach, and he shared the story of how a patron came into his restaurant, and the patron brought with them this little white 7-pound fluffy toy poodle. And they wanted this little white 7-pound fluffy toy poodle to have dinner with him at the restaurant. And they wanted this dog to have dinner with him, but sit on top of the dinner table. Well, the restaurant owner came over to the patron and said, you know, we'd love to give the dog a plate of food, but it would be better if we gave the dog the food outside. Well, the patron got very upset, and he left. And you have the business owner going, I got the health department that would say this on one hand, and the ADA people that would say this on the other hand, because 6 months after the patron left, he ended up suing the business, claiming the dog was a service dog. Well, in this situation, the business owner fought the case, and he won, but it cost him $100,000 to do it. So
win.
it goes back to win.
Okay.
So did he really win? You know, to settle it, just to make it go
okay.
away. He should have invested in his business, hired
He
employees.
won it by justice, but
He
in
won
name
it
of
by justice.
no, in
Yes,
name
right.
of justice, he won.
Right.
Right? Because you do not want to blackmail people like that. It's a blackmail thing, right? So you're a service dog and has to sit on the table. How about you're a service dog that's 40 pounds? Right? Something like that. Okay?
Right.
That's totally unfair. But the thing is, the sorry part is that he has to put up $100,000 to make it right, to bring him back to page one,
Right.
right? As if nothing had happened, right? So the plaintiff goes home empty-handed. Well, he goes home with a minus of $100,000.
That's right.
That's the result.
That's right.
You get people discouraged that way. So now, when we call upon our audiences, what else, in addition to make sure that they want to start the things themselves, what else do you think we could call upon our audience to do, to join us?
Well, certainly now, you know, as there is another March election coming up in the city of Los Angeles, as well as other municipalities across Southern California, you know, take a look and look to see who these people are that represent you at the city council level, on the school boards, in the state assembly, you know, wherever.
Voting
and
records.
see, right, and see if they support civil justice reform. And if they don't, maybe it's time you vote in those people that do, because we really do need some kind of relief here in California. The regulations are just too many. And the regulations, the enforcement tool on that is litigation, and they set it up that way. That's why California is the #2 judicial hellhole, because of ADA lawsuits, the abuse of the Americans with Disabilities lawsuits, wage and hour violations, and Proposition 65.
And also they can make it the word of mouth, let it travel from mouth to mouth that we have a problem, that California system is being clogged up, that taxpayers' money is being wasted, both for nothing.
Well, that's the whole point, too, with the Judicial Hellhole report. It pointed out that the reason why California is also very plaintiff-friendly, and the reason why they bring these cases here, is that out-of-state plaintiffs come here to sue out-of-state defendants, to sue them on issues that also happened out of state. And they do that because California courts are very plaintiff-friendly, but at a cost to taxpayers. Because just a few years ago, the governor and the legislature had to slash court funding by about $350 million. They closed courts. Judges were overburdened. So to keep all this operating, you know, it's California taxpayers that are paying for it, but yet our cases on issues that happen here in California are not being heard. And you know, there are a lot of important issues that need to have that decision made in court when it comes.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Exactly.
And so those cases are being pushed aside for the frivolous type of cases.
All right, good. Legitimate cases are put aside because our system is clogged up by those frivolous cases. So with that many frivolous cases, people get encouraged to go on to file more, and filing more even get more clogged up, and it goes towards someday we totally shut down.
We totally, I mean, it's about $400. I could go into any courthouse in this state, and for $400 or so, allege you caused me harm. And what does that do to the business? They started, you know, defending themselves, thinking of how they got to put all this information together, and they end up settling. So if you put out $400 and you come back with a $5,000 settlement, that's a pretty good rate of return for really not having to do too much to do it.
Yeah, exactly. People learn. People pay. I mean, people go to learn. I mean, learning by going as day by day. And you can learn positive things, you can learn bad things. This is so negative. I don't want this thing keep on happening. I don't want our children learn that cases or money could be made by easily checking the doorknob or something like that.
Right.
So is there a website or something that my audience would like to check about, please?
Yes, they can go to www.cala.com. And I'd like to invite your audience. I know many who have seen us on the show before have come with us to our day at the Capitol up in Sacramento. This year, it's April 4th. I'd like to invite you, and I'd like to invite them to join us. And that's when they can sit down with their state assembly person or state senator and share their story as to why we need to fix the legal system here in California.
And my dear audience, I believe you all heard about the website. It's www.cala.com, which is so easy, only 4 letters, CALA.com, CALA for California Citizen Against Lawsuit Abuse, CALA. It is a lovely state that ours is. We call it the Sunshine State. And with the sun shining less and less with the clock of the judicial system, we really worry about California. Thanks to people like my good friend Miriam Maloney, thanks to all CALA members, so CALA family, and I believe that we together can cultivate into this, make our community, our California, a better place we call home. All right. So 30 seconds to wrap up, Willa, to your audiences.
Well, thank you again for all you do for CALA, and join with us. Go to our website, cala.com. Come with us to Sacramento to share your story with legislators. We're a grassroots movement, and we've been successful with sharing our stories to the legislators as to how these unjust laws are impacting our jobs and our businesses and our communities.
All right, all right. So my audience, thank you very much for watching, and to my friend Miriam Maloney, Director of CALA, Regional Director of CALA, thank you very much for sharing the information.
Thank you, Jack.
Bye-bye.